Now, today we have an open discussion, which is always exciting. To start us off, I would like to pose to you the following question. At what point does a person who stutters stop identifying as a person who stutters? How do you psychologically let go of that identity and form a new one?
So first of all, I do still identify as a stutterer, as I have not yet stopped stuttering. However, I will say, from my standpoint, I can see significant improvement. And in my mind, I am already changing the way I'm viewing who I am, and I I am not. Uh, uh, I am not placing so much emphasis anymore on my stuttering, and I feel like I will very quickly overcome, and then soon I can join the ranks of the many people who stopped stuttering.
I've been on this calls like a few times in the past, but this is the very first time that I'm speaking or saying anything. So for me, I think to get to a point where I would identify as someone who does not stutter anymore, I think I need a little bit of like a runway. Like say if I have like a duration of time that I don't have any moments where I appear like speech disabled or impaired. So if I'm able to go through that for maybe like a month and then not have any like severe moments where I appear speech disabled, I think for me that is when I will begin to identify as someone who no longer has a stutter. And of course, the fears and anxiety may persist a little bit more beyond that. Yeah, but that is something that I'll be able to continue to work on.
I stuttered for 60 some years, stuttered away, just stuttered. Then in March, I found Coach Lee and I found out that stuttering is a habit. By June, I became a PWSS. But I want to tell you, I still identified as a stutterer. I really had to use Lee's tools all the time. I was extremely focused. And then in the fall, I suddenly realized I was no longer thinking words. My speech was just flowing. For some reason, my brain had clicked in to a non-stutterer to a fluent. So that's basically when I started to identify as a fluent speaker and not a stutterer.
I think it's so important to recognize your victory. By that, I mean, when you go 30 days without a humiliating bad incident, by that, I mean, you do not like force the word out, right? But instead, every time you have the urge to force the word, you stop talking, take 2 counts, and apply the crutch. And when you do this over a period of time, right, your brain suddenly thinks, hey, you were supposed to stutter, but why are you doing something else now? Then eventually it'll get, trained, and it'll think maybe this person won't stutter anymore. Maybe I'll adapt to the new cue, and it'll start shifting towards the fluency. And there's something called the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, right? So the limbic system is responsible for our maybe when you have the sugar craving, and if you go and grab a chocolate, then you are strengthening your limbic system, right? But if you don't do that and instead drink a glass of water, you are strengthening your prefrontal cortex. And prefrontal cortex is so essential, like strengthening it is so essential to form new habits, right? I'm not a neuroscientist, right? But I just know these information from different podcasts and by reading books, right? So, and also, it's not only about being fluent. The most important thing that Coach Lee has also reiterated in his book, which is celebrating the fluency. If you're not going to recognize that you're being fluent, probably you will always end up seeing the glass half empty, right? And that's not going to help. So it's so important that you recognize them. By that, you are directly strengthening your amygdala, where the emotions sit. So it is slowly transitioning from viewing a speaking situation as fearful from maybe I can go and talk. Maybe it's not so fearful, right? And when you do this, eventually, over a period of time, you will enjoy speaking, right? So it is so important that you celebrate your fluency as well. And that is why If I ask you a question, what do you remember the exact syllabus of the subject maths that you had, during your 6th grade? Probably you will not remember the exact syllabus, but definitely you will remember how your teacher made you feel, right? Maybe happy or maybe sad. You'll be able to relate to the emotions more than the exact subject. That's why emotions are so important. So whenever you have a fluency, victory, celebrate that.
Fantastic. And to answer your question, it was dread. Math would fill me with dread.
The reason why it's so important to change our identity is because it allows us to be different in a sense. Like I think by definition, the thing that defines a stutterer or a stammerer is the fact that they stutter. So you basically go into a talk expecting that to happen, expecting blocks to happen, and expecting that you actually can apply the technique in the right way. You feel a block and then you push through. So even if you actually don't feel that it is true, it's really important to repeat it. I am a person who stops stuttering, and I am a person who has the abilities and tools and skills to get over each block. This doesn't mean that you actually love talking, or this doesn't mean that no blocks come. Of course not. But it does mean that you actually have the abilities needed to apply those crutches in an excellent way that allows you to pass those blocks and choppiness. So I think it's a useful truth, and it's something that actually changes mindset and behavior too.
More than anything, and this may be especially emphasized with my speech journey, but for me, that step meant acknowledging that I am now the one in control and not stuttering, right? So there is nothing to fear, and I am the one who's controlling and who's keeping me accountable in terms of not stuttering, right? In terms of remaining fluent. It does not mean perfect speech, because that, of course, doesn't exist. And it doesn't mean there's no room for improvement left. Obviously not. There is for all of us. But nevertheless, it's a very important milestone. I agree.
So when I joined StopStutter program at the beginning, like for the first month, I was seeing changes. Like for me, at that situation, it was like something is better than nothing. Earlier, I used to face embarrassment. At least now, during that first month, I had techniques and tools which would avoid embarrassment. Then, just after the end of first month, I just recognized, and Javier also helped me to recognize that I have not had any bad incident for 30 days or more. And he said that you are a PWSS now. But that was not like believable for me, because I thought PWSS is the finest or the final destination of a PWS. So I thought, how could I be that much, like how could I achieve that stage just in 1 month? I think there is much more to do. So according to Javier, I agreed his thoughts and I considered myself as a PWSS. But I think I had achieved many more things just after becoming the PWSS. Because PWSS is just a term, but the actual work you need to do is building you only every day, part by part. So when I was at the end of second month, I was at my 50%. After the third month, through my own practice and all, I was at 70%. Like that, I knew that there is room for improvement and I can improve as long as I want to. And I did that. So I think you cannot find a specific point that you can mention that where you have transitioned from PWS to PWSS, because I think that is like a gradient, like light to dark. You just move along the gradient and suddenly you think, yeah, my fears are gone. After becoming PWS also, I had fears of speaking, but now most of my fears are gone. And I think there is many more things to achieve for me right now also. Like I am just at the beginning. I want to be a public speaker. I know cannot be the best, but there can be a better version of me every day. And I think that affirmations helped me identify that I have recovered from stuttering. The affirmations every day that I repeat, it remind me that you are not stuttering. You have achieved something. So that's it. That gives me boost every day, just like a rocket.
to keep the fluency forward is essential, especially for the first journey. That is very mandatory because always we are thinking that the negative one, we must think always positive. We must focus our mind full of affirmation, stretch, and speech plan. We don't allow ourselves to think negative because maybe one bad incident changing our fluency to the bad way. So now I notice we must keep the fluency always forward, always to speak in the good way, always to think in the nice way. So we must think always we can, not we can't. And we always focus on the fluency one, not because the mind thoughts now you're going to stutter or uh, something, but we must focus on the fluency. That is very important for the first journey.
PWS stops identifying basically when they decide to. They sort of have to see the finished product in mind, you know. So I remember that even when I was, you know, really struggling with this, like in the darkest days of stuttering, I knew I could overcome it one of these days because I read about people who did that. I read about John Harrison, Ruth Mead. I actually had lunch with John Harrison because he lived in San Francisco's Marina District. Um, I met with him, great guy, but he didn't give me any reproducible steps. And that's why this program is so valuable. Not only because we have ample proof of people who become completely fluent, but we also have reproducible steps. Whereas for people like John Harrison and Ruth Mead, they've reached the finished product, but they couldn't reproduce it. So at the time, I was like, I will be like that level of fluency one day, even though I was not there. So seeing the finished product in mind, that actually echoes one of Tony Robbins' exercises or one of his seminars when he talks about how no one ran a 10-minute mile until one person did it. And the way he did it was he saw himself running the 10-minute mile in his mind. And then after he did it, like 20 other people did it in the same year. So, you know, it's just seeing the goal in the mind. And that's why visualization of the affirmation is so important because you see it. And there's actually a technique where you take the images you want, like your imagined fluency moments, and make the pictures brighter and bigger. And you think back to your disfluent moments, perhaps your last speech incident, and you make the picture smaller and darker and shatter it. That's actually a well-known neuro-linguistic technique. But going back to the question, when did I know that I'm no longer a PWS? It's when I like knew I could express whatever I wanted, right? When I could let my personality come through, when I can let basically my thoughts come through. And I still remember this specific moment. I was practicing Coach Lee's crutches, and it was at a seminar, and I was doing the crutch 8. And all of a sudden, you know, at that moment, I knew I had to transition. It was actually a specific, like, I can point back to that minute in time where I was like, okay, before that, I was struggling to get the words out and switching around and dancing around. But after that, it's like I could say anything I want without rephrasing, without substituting, just using Crush 8 and 9. It was at that seminar.
I will say that I know the situations where I will feel nervous and I appeared speech disabled. So I'm saying that when I reach a point where I feel like I no longer stutter, it means that I will feel comfortable to go and speak in those meetings that used to make me feel so nervous, you know. When I feel comfortable within me, when I feel that inner peace, to just be comfortable and express myself, I think that for me, I will say that I stopped stuttering. For example, I used to bite my nails for so many years, and I tried so many things to stop, and they didn't work. But surprisingly, since I joined this program, I no longer bite my nails. Like the other day, I was showing my husband that, look at my nails. I no longer have that feeling to say, bite my nails. So I think I was just used to this tension of stuttering. Yeah, so I think those things that, you know, the things that I used to do, the bad feelings that I used to have before I joined the program, if they can all go away, I think I will say I no longer stutter. I know that I'm still in the journey. I am not yet there, but I can see so many things that are improving since I joined the program.
I think that our identities start to change when we see the result. when we see fluency happen consistently over time. At least for me, that's where I can see that change. However, I also have a question for Pratusha. She mentioned that it's important to celebrate our fluency. And I think Dong mentioned a couple of ways on how we can do that. But I was wondering if Pratusha or anyone else has suggestions on how we can celebrate our fluency more.
Hey, Tara, thank you so much for that question. One way in which I celebrate my fluency is by self-talk, right? So I'll do self-talk. I'll talk, positively to myself. Hey, you did a great job today. You spoke very fluently in front of your manager today. And, so I do a lot of self-talk that works for me. But from what Dong said, he kind of, imagine that exact moment where that, transition happened for him, and he simulates that over and over again. Right. And so these are some ways, in which you can celebrate fluency. And if anybody has any other thoughts, please do let us know.
Yeah, also, I will quickly jump in and just mention, I also do the self-talk. And a lot of the times when I'm visualizing, I'm also speaking, interestingly, because I feel like when I speak it, I feel like I kind of speak it into existence in a way, right? I think for some people that works even better. For me, it certainly does. And it has the bonus of also adding some time that my mind hears me speak fluently, right? It has that bonus as well. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Great. I'm sorry, Dong, do you want to comment as well?
Yeah, quickly aside. So one thing Tari can do also to anchor your fluency moments to certain gestures, right? Like after you had a very fluent moment, like the gesture I use is this. You can do anything. You can snap your fingers, or some people they like to do this. You can anchor to after a big like positive emotion of fluency. You can anchor to a gesture, and then after the anchor is being set, every time that you go into a stressful speaking situation, you use the gesture, and the emotion will come back, and you can be fluent again. That's my quick 2 cents.
I think I can chime in really briefly on that topic. So I think many of you have you would have watched this series Grey's Anatomy, right? There, one of the doctors always, whenever she feels stressful, she holds the Superman pose, right? Both the hands on the hip, and she feels more powerful, right? So probably Tara could also use that pose.
So I think that actually is really important to wire the brain is emotion. Okay, so this explains why, as an example, it's so tough to get past trauma, because an event happens when we are at a deeply emotional state, like deeply emotional state. So it's a thing. So the memory gets branded in your mind. So if this applies on the bad sense, it also applies on the positive sense. Okay. So when you actually get a great speech victory, don't say like, yeah, great, it's great, or just like write it in a notes, yeah, it is great. No. You must feel it and embody it. Like, oh my God, I did amazing today. Like, show the passion and the energy while doing it, because your brain doesn't understand word, it understands emotion. Okay. So not like the act of writing things down, of course it's important, but the act of having emotion behind it, and passion and emotion, it's much stronger.
From my experience, when I had a coach, Coach Javier would always encourage me to post a success story. And back then I didn't want to, because simply for the fact that I didn't identify as a person who stopped stuttering. And that was because I would still repeat words more often than the people around me. And then, yeah, so he would encourage me time after time. Then I would just say no. But one time I just gave in. I was like, all right, I'll just claim as a PWSS since it's part of the program. I'll just do it, whatever. And then what I started to realize is that I stopped being so harsh on myself, that it's okay to repeat words. That I don't do it now I don't do it as often, but I slowly realized that I stopped repeating words less often, and I, I started being kinder to myself. And that's where I saw big improvements. And at one point, At what point does a person who stops stuttering identify as a person who wait, what? For the people that struggle, I would just say like try to, if you been past those 30 days, just try to find the courage, just accept the fact that it's okay to repeat words here and there, but it's, as long as you keep improving, that's what really matters.
What I would say, the most important thing is that we need to be consistent, keep your practice. I mean, when you become, the person or psychologically, that is not so important. See, the whole learning is when you learn, you go in steps, and then suddenly you reach a point where your skill jumps. So, the curve is like this, that, going up, 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 and suddenly like shoot. And if you are in your practice, you don't even realize when you reach that point where your skill set shoots up, you don't even feel it. You are doing practice every day, and suddenly you see you are fluent, you are smooth. You don't even realize it. It's just like a flick of a finger, right? So for me, every big meeting, as I said, preparation, lot of preparation, strategies, practice, and that is the key. So focus your time and energy. Do not worry, do not overthink. Put your energy and time in solution. What you think grows in your life, where your attention is, that part grows. So spending 5 minutes worrying, no, get up, take a walk, come back, do reading, loud reading, affirmations, whatever time you have. And I mean, I am least bothered about what do I think, when do I think. My whole thing is that focusing on the preparation, and of course celebrate your victory. I record every of my meeting and I go back. I get so much pleasure. I conducted this meeting. I was so smooth. I was so brilliant. I was so smart how I could handle the meeting. I take input from two port, eyes and ears. I see my meeting, I hear, and I try to enhance my memories. And I feel great about it. So, like, by all means, celebrate your victories. Go back to your victorious moments, enhance your memories. Don't spend time each second and with each thought. Either you are moving towards solution or you are moving away from your solution. So put your time and energy towards solution. Make effort, make attempt so that you get closer to goal. And if you do that, you don't worry about where you are. In one of the scriptural things, Gita, Lord Krishna tells warrior Arjun, you sharpen your instrument, you sharpen your weapons, and you keep your skills ready. Don't worry about war. Keep yourself ready. Keep yourself best. Keep your weapons best. You will automatically take care of the war. Thank you.
Fantastic, Vish. On these SAM meetings, you always deliver gold. As yeah, with every comment, I feel like you're the speaker. It's very great. Thanks for sharing and showing up.
When I had my 30 days victory in the app, I loved when I got my badge, and I thought, oh, right. So then I just want to emphasize, I think the key to psychologically letting go of that old identity is celebrating every speech victory. I cannot emphasize that enough. At the start, I'm not going to lie, I haven't heard anyone else here saying this, but when I had speech victories, because my speech was so bad, I would treat myself big time. I may have a glass of Prosecco if I'd done something really great. I would buy myself a takeout. I'd go out for a meal. And then I started having so many, it became too expensive then. So I had to stop. But yes, the emotion, I think, is what it's all about. So now how I celebrate, but how I keep it going is I keep coming to SAM meetings. I keep pushing myself up the fluency ladder. I'm hosting now, co-hosting, focus on fluency. I'm hosting practice sessions. So therefore, just like right now, I'm going to go off SAM and I'm going to tell myself a huge well done I'm going to celebrate. I am actually getting a takeout now tonight anyway. But as well, I think when you're just over the 30 days as well, it's so important at the end of every day, you write down in your own little personal journal, maybe 3 things that went so well. Forget the bad ones. That's how I think you become a PWSS. So thank you, Noah, for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I very much agree. I thinking back, it's really odd how I used to grade things. For me, it used to be like one bad incident is worth as much as like 30 great incidents, right?
Yeah.
With how our brain saves it, but there is no point for this
And now
unevenness.
they're gone. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So
That's it,
it's
done.
1 point. It's 1 point lost, 1 point gained. Yeah,
Yes.
that's it.
So earlier, I used to stammer a lot. I had the fearful situation like ordering the food and asking for the directions to people. And every day, I had some fearful things like this. Yeah, but after I came in contact with Lee, I came to know the use of the affirmations and how we can use the crutches. And the best part is that now I can tell the stories to people and I can easily talk to random people. Because earlier my biggest fear was talking to random people. If I had to ask the questions to people or if I need to order something, I would definitely was in a difficult situation to do so. But now I can order the things on my own, and that is what I like the most now. Thanks to Lee and this wonderful program.
I also feel like it is super important to not be ashamed while speaking about your speech journey. I find now that everyone I speak to now, I'm trying to let them know what I'm doing, and that is really improving my my self-worth, and it is helping me remove the stigma that I myself have placed upon my own life. So I think that being vocal about what you're trying to achieve is also something that may help.
One of my favorite harsh truths from Coach Lee is that stuttering is a choice. Stuttering is a habit. So if we can choose to stutter, we can choose to not stutter with the use of the 1, 2, 3 punch. And by that logic, we can effectively choose immediately to not be stutterers anymore. Whether that be through the use of slowing down or taking much longer pauses, you can be called a long pauser, you can be called a slow speaker, but you can't be called a stutterer at that point. So I'll leave it short and sweet. Thank you, Noah.
This is something I struggle with quite a lot, actually, because I know without a doubt how much of an impact this program has had on my speech and how much of an improvement I've had. But I still have plenty of issues of choppy speech, shall we say, especially if I'm feeling under pressure. And I'm extremely reluctant to grade myself as highly as potentially I should do. I would definitely say I don't have, horrendous incidents, and I don't know. I would be perhaps surprised if people who didn't know me were aware I stammered. Certainly, people who I know still do, and I feel I have incidents where I struggle, and I know that I've struggled because of a habit, and I've fallen into a bad habit of speaking. It's not that I've had a bad incident or I've had fear, but certainly I've almost fallen into a trap. And as a result, I refuse to grade myself as strongly as I perhaps should, because I don't believe I've succeeded as well as I want to. And I'm also aware that, on average, creating a new habit should take, I think the average is around 66 days. So I'm of an opinion that 30 days without a serious incident isn't enough. And as a result, I refuse to grade myself as being a PWSS at that stage, because I am not comfortable enough to accept that. And I know that's a personal opinion, and I know it goes against a lot of what the program says, but I thought I'd give my opinion on that.
Of course, I still view myself as a PWS, but since I figured out the two hardest challenges for me that I have to overcome, which are, first of all, time pressure, and the second of all, to not care about what other people think of you, even if you talk, or even if you use the crutches or your speech plan. So I'm still on that way of trying to speak just the way that I think is the good way, and stop caring about other people.
I will say what Lee always says is our choice to speak fluently. So, as a man thinks in his heart, so is it. And for me, if I'm able to let myself know that I am in charge of my speech, I have the tools I need to apply, pauses, enunciate my words, use synonyms, then very soon, if I practice, I will soon become a PWSS. It's my choice. It is doable. I can control the speed at which I speak. I can enunciate my words. And I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. It's up to me to be a PWSS. Thank you.
Because stuttering is a choice, the way I'm perceiving it now is that if I do have any bad moments, not anything severe, but just a little slip up, we are now all equipped with all of these tools. So we don't need to perceive it as the end of the world. It's okay. You have your tools now. So just keep practicing. So that has been another mindset shift that has making this journey a lot more smooth for me. So I just wanted to add that little portion.
The question, how does a PWS stop identifying him or herself as a PWS, makes me think the following: no humiliating, stuttering incidents. No means none, zero, for as long as it takes in that PWS's case. Noah, thank you for hosting today. You did a great job.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that. I will now end with our motto. Feel free to sing it along with me. If you can say one word, anywhere, anytime, you can say and love to say any word, anywhere, anytime. Until next Saturday, have a great weekend.